The 12 HFY warships arrived at Nexus 7 like a storm of metal and energy. Captain Moltar commanded the formation from his heavy battlecruiser, the largest and most powerful ship in the HFY fleet. He had studied the battle reports carefully and thought he understood how to defeat the humans. "Spread formation," he ordered his captains. "Do not group together. Their kinetic weapons can only target one ship at a time. We will surround them and attack from all directions." But as the alien fleet moved into position, they discovered something unexpected. The space around Nexus 7 was no longer empty. Dozens of ships had arrived during the past 10 hours, all responding to Captain Hyun-Ki's message. Veltani mining vessels floated near the asteroid field, their industrial equipment converted into makeshift weapons. HFY trading ships had brought supplies and intelligence about HFY fleet movements. Even some species that Captain Moltar had never seen before were present, drawn by the promise of freedom. "What is this?" Moltar demanded from his bridge. "Where did all these ships come from?" His intelligence officer was scanning the various vessels frantically. "Mixed fleet, Captain. Multiple species, mostly civilian ships with light armament. But there are many of them." "Civilian ships cannot threaten military vessels," Moltar said confidently. "Ignore them and focus on the primary target." But he was making the same mistake that had cost Captain Zendar his life. He was underestimating his enemies. On the Indomitable, Captain Hyun-Ki watched the enemy fleet approach. 12 ships against 1 would have been hopeless. 12 ships against 50 was a different kind of battle entirely. "So young status of our new allies?" 37 ships total, Captain. Most are mining or trading vessels, but they know this region of space better than anyone, and they are very motivated to fight. Captain Vintel's voice came over the communication channel from his trading ship. "Human Captain, we have prepared a surprise for the HFY fleet. The asteroid field has been seeded with mining charges. When they enter the field, we can trigger massive explosions." Jiwon smiled at her tactical display. "Captain, the aliens are deploying exactly as we hoped. They are trying to surround us, which means they have to enter the asteroid field to get good firing positions. And the mining charges will turn the asteroids into weapons," Taeho added. "Just like our railgun attack, but on a much larger scale." Captain Moltar divided his fleet into 4 groups of 3 ships each. He planned to attack the human vessel from multiple directions simultaneously, preventing them from focusing their devastating kinetic weapons on any single target. "All groups, advance," he ordered. "Remember, their weapons penetrate shields, so maintain maximum distance until we can coordinate our attack." The HFY ships moved into the asteroid field cautiously. The large rocks and ice chunks would provide cover for both sides, but they also made navigation dangerous. Captain Moltar's ships had to reduce speed to avoid collisions. That was when the trap was sprung. Captain Vintel triggered the first set of mining charges. Explosions rippled through the asteroid field as hidden devices detonated simultaneously. Chunks of rock and ice were hurled in all directions at tremendous speed. The HFY ships found themselves caught in a deadly hailstorm of debris. Their energy shields, designed to stop plasma weapons, were overwhelmed by thousands of physical projectiles moving at high velocity. 2 alien ships were destroyed immediately as large asteroids smashed through their hulls. 3 more were damaged when smaller debris punctured their shields and caused hull breaches. "Ambush," Captain Moltar shouted. "All ships fall back from the asteroid field." But it was too late to escape the trap. The Veltani miners had spent decades learning how to move rocks through space. They knew exactly how to predict the trajectory of every piece of debris they had created. Captain Hyun-Ki watched the alien fleet struggling with the asteroid bombardment. "Now, Taeho, target the largest ship while they are distracted." The Indomitable's main railgun fired, sending a tungsten rod streaking toward Captain Moltar's battlecruiser. The projectile struck the alien flagship near the engine section, causing a chain of explosions that crippled the massive vessel. Captain Moltar felt his ship shudder as critical systems failed throughout the battlecruiser. "Damage report." "Engine room destroyed, sir. Main weapons offline. We are losing power on all decks." The HFY formation was falling apart. Half their ships were damaged or destroyed, and the survivors were scattered throughout the asteroid field. But worse than the physical damage was the psychological impact. For 200 years, the HFY had been the undisputed masters of this region of space. Now they were being defeated by a coalition of species they had dismissed as harmless slaves and primitives. "All ships retreat." Captain Moltar ordered reluctantly. "We cannot win this battle." But as the alien ships tried to flee, they found their escape routes blocked. More allied vessels had arrived during the fighting, including some warships from species that had been waiting generations for a chance to strike back at their oppressors. The Zephyrian destroyer Vengeance moved to intercept 3 damaged Kethvar cruisers. Captain Zelandra had lost her homeworld to the Kethvar 50 years ago. Today was her chance for revenge. For Zephyr Prime, she broadcast as her ship's weapons opened fire on the retreating aliens. The battle became a rout. Kethvar ships that had entered the system with confidence and superior numbers were now fleeing in panic. Some were destroyed by allied weapons. Others surrendered rather than face certain death. Captain Moltar's crippled battlecruiser was surrounded by enemy vessels. With his engines dead and weapons offline, he had no choice but to surrender. "This is Captain Moltar of the Kethvar Imperial Fleet," he transmitted on all frequencies. "We surrender unconditionally. Please do not destroy us." Captain Hyun-Ki accepted the surrender, but he knew this victory was about more than just one battle. The oppressed species of the sector had finally united against their common enemy. What had started as humanity's first contact with aliens had become the beginning of a galactic revolution. "So Young, send a message to Earth Command," he ordered. "Tell them we have made contact with multiple alien species and formed a military alliance. We will need reinforcements and supplies for an extended campaign." "What should we call this alliance, Captain?" Ji-Won asked. Hyun-Ki looked at the mixed fleet of ships surrounding his vessel. "Humans, Veltani, Heshka, Zephyrians, and a dozen other species working together for the first time in centuries. The Galactic Liberation Alliance," he said, "because that is what we are going to do. We are going to liberate every world the Kethvar have conquered." In the weeks that followed, the alliance grew rapidly. More species joined the coalition as word spread that the Kethvar could be defeated. Supply lines were established. Battle plans were made. The oppressed peoples of the sector finally had hope. The Kethvar Empire tried to respond with overwhelming force, but they discovered that their enemies had learned from human tactics. Kinetic weapons and coordinated attacks became the standard throughout the Alliance fleet. Captain Hyun-Ki's reconnaissance mission had accidentally started the largest war in galactic history. But it was a war worth fighting, and humanity would not fight it alone. Earth's first contact with alien life had led to something no one expected, not conquest or submission, but liberation and alliance. The stars belonged to all free peoples, and the Galactic Liberation Alliance would make sure they stayed that way. The age of Kethvar domination was ending. The age of freedom was just beginning. Fleet Commander Rathgul stared at the emergency message display with disbelief. The words were clear, but they made no sense. Captain Zendar was dead. His flagship was destroyed. 2 other cruisers were either destroyed or crippled. All by a single unknown vessel with primitive weapons. "This cannot be accurate," he said to his communications officer. "Run a full verification on this transmission." "Already done, sir," Communications Officer Temrak replied nervously. "The message is genuine. Both surviving ships confirm the same details. The unknown vessel used kinetic weapons that penetrated our shields completely." Rathgul walked to the tactical display and studied the battle data. The energy readings showed massive explosions consistent with ship destruction. But the weapon signatures made no sense. Pure kinetic energy at impossible velocities. "Kinetic weapons cannot move at 12% of light speed," he said firmly. "The physics are wrong." "The sensor data is consistent across multiple ships, sir," his science advisor replied. Whatever these aliens used, it worked exactly as reported. Meanwhile, word of the battle was spreading across the sector through channels the Kethvar could not control. The Veltani mining stations had powerful sensors designed to track asteroid movements. They had detected the energy signatures when Captain Zendar's ship exploded. At Mining Station Gamma 7, Supervisor Lokhan studied the readings with growing excitement. "The energy pattern matches Kethvar plasma technology," he whispered to his assistant. "But it was not a controlled explosion. That was battle damage. Are you certain?" "Positive. Someone destroyed a Kethvar cruiser. For the first time in 200 years, someone fought them and won." The news traveled from mining station to trading post to hidden resistance cells throughout the sector. Species that had been enslaved for generations suddenly had hope. The Kethvar were not invincible after all. On the damaged Heshka trading vessel Silent Prophet, Captain Vintel received the news through encrypted channels. His ship had been hiding in the outer system, avoiding Kethavar patrols. Now he sent coded messages to resistance groups on a dozen worlds. The impossible has happened, his message read. The Kethavar have been defeated in open battle. The oppressor can bleed. But the Kethavar were not the only ones taking notice. Deep space monitoring stations belonging to other empires detected the unusual energy signatures from the battle. Ancient enemies of the Kethavar began to mobilize their fleets, sensing an opportunity. The Zephyrian collective had been waiting 3 centuries for a chance to strike back at their former conquerors. The battle near Nexus 7 suggested that someone had found a way to defeat Kethavar technology. On the Indomitable, Captain Hyun Ki was dealing with more immediate problems. The 2 surviving alien ships were maintaining their distance, but they were still in communication with their fleet. Every minute that passed gave the Kethavar more intelligence about human capabilities. So young, what are they transmitting to their base? Complete tactical analysis, Captain. Ship specifications, weapon performance, armor thickness, crew size estimates. They are sending everything they observed during the battle. Can we jam their communications? Engineer Dongmin shook his head. Not without damaging our own system, sir. Their transmission technology is more advanced than ours in some ways. Ji-Wan was studying long-range sensor data. Captain, I am detecting new ship movements from the direction of the Kethavar fleet base. Multiple vessels moving this way at high speed. How many? At least 8 ships, possibly more. They will arrive in approximately 10 hours. Captain Hyun Ki felt the weight of command pressing down on him. 8 ships against 1. The odds were getting worse, not better. And once the aliens understood human tactics, they would adapt their strategies accordingly. Status of our repairs? Stealth systems will be operational in 4 hours, Dongmin reported. But even with stealth, they know our general location. We cannot hide indefinitely. In the Kethavar Fleet Command Center, Fleet Commander Rathgal was assembling a much larger force. If 3 cruisers were not enough to defeat this unknown enemy, he would send enough ships to overwhelm them completely. Captain Moltar, he addressed his most experienced commander, take 12 ships to Nexus 7. Find this alien vessel and destroy it. I want wreckage to study and prisoners to question. Captain Moltar saluted. Yes, sir. What about the survivors from Captain Zendar's formation? Rescue them if possible, but your primary mission is to eliminate the threat. We cannot allow word of this defeat to spread further. But it was already too late to contain the information. Across the sector, oppressed species were organizing secret meetings and planning rebellions. The psychological impact of the Kethavar defeat was spreading faster than any military response. On the mining world Kepler 438b, Veltani workers held their first resistance meeting in 50 years. The mine supervisor, a Kethavar overlord named Gestak, had no idea that his slaves were planning revolution. If these new aliens can defeat the Kethavar fleet, whispered resistance leader Nolvar, perhaps we can defeat the occupation forces on our world. Similar conversations were happening throughout the empire. The Heshka traders were sharing information about Kethavar patrol routes and supply schedules. The Kethalani agricultural workers were hiding weapons and planning strikes. For 2 centuries, the Kethavar had maintained control through fear and superior technology. Now that technological advantage had been challenged and fear was turning into anger. On the Indomitable, So Young was intercepting communications from across the sector. Her translation programs were working overtime to decode messages in multiple alien languages. Captain, you need to hear this, she said with amazement. We are receiving transmissions from dozens of different sources. Not all of them are Kethavar. What are they saying? Some are offering help, sir. Navigation data, supply caches, safe harbors for repairs. The Kethavar appear to have made many enemies over the years. Captain Hyun Ki studied the tactical situation. His ship was damaged, outnumbered, and far from home. But apparently they were not alone in hostile territory. The enemy of their enemy might become their friend. Ji-Wan, what do you recommend? We cannot fight 12 ships in open space, Captain. But if we had allies, the situation would change dramatically. What kind of allies? Local resistance groups, Captain. Species that hate the Kethavar as much as we do now. They know this region of space better than we do. Chief Medical Officer Yoonji was treating the injured crew members when she overheard the conversation. Captain, if we are going to fight a war out here, we will need more than allies. We will need a cause that others can believe in. What do you mean? The Kethvar attack us because they think we are weak. But these other species are fighting for their freedom. If we help them, they will help us. Captain Hyun-ki considered her words. Earth had sent him on a reconnaissance mission, but the situation had changed completely. First contact with aliens had become first combat with an empire. Now it might become first alliance with an entire sector full of oppressed peoples. The decision he made next would affect not just his ship and crew, but the future relationship between humanity and dozens of alien species. Earth command was months away by faster-than-light communication. He would have to make this choice alone. So Young, open a channel on all frequencies, he ordered. I want to speak to anyone who is listening. Channel open, Captain. Hyun-ki looked at his crew, then at the stars beyond the view screen. Somewhere out there, 12 enemy ships were approaching. But also out there were potential allies who had been waiting centuries for someone to help them fight back. This is Captain Hyun-ki of the Earth Federation, he broadcast to the sector. We came here in peace, but we will not leave in defeat. Any species that desires freedom from oppression, we offer our alliance. The message raced across space at light speed, carrying humanity's first diplomatic overture to the galaxy. The response would determine whether humans fought alone or as part of something much larger. The 3 Kethvar cruisers moved through space like predators approaching their prey. Captain Zendar commanded the formation from his flagship, the Stellar Dominance. His 2 escort ships, the Night Hunter and the Star Crusher, flanked him in perfect military formation. Target acquired, reported his tactical officer. The unknown vessel is holding position near the asteroid field. They are not running away. Captain Zendar found this behavior strange. Most species fled when they saw Kethvar warships approaching. The fact that this primitive vessel was staying put suggested either extreme courage or complete stupidity. Maybe their engines are broken, suggested his science officer. That would explain why they are not trying to escape. Or maybe they are too ignorant to understand the danger they are in, Zendar replied. Either way, this will be over quickly. On the Indomitable, Captain Hyun-ki studied the approaching alien ships through his tactical display. They were beautiful in their own way, with sleek hulls that seemed to glow with internal energy. Bright shields surrounded each vessel like colored soap bubbles. Their weapons glowed with contained plasma that looked both elegant and deadly. Analysis. Ji-won, Hyun-ki requested. Lieutenant Ji-won worked at her station, her fingers dancing across the controls as she studied the enemy formation. 3 heavy cruisers, Captain. They are maintaining a standard intimidation formation designed to look impressive. Their positioning is perfect for showing off but poor for actual combat efficiency. What about their technology? Engineer Dongmin looked up from his sensor readings. Very advanced energy systems, Captain. Those shields look powerful, probably designed to stop plasma weapons and laser attacks. But I noticed something interesting about their hull construction. What do you see? The hulls are thin, sir. Maybe a few centimeters of actual armor under those energy shields. They have built their ships for speed and energy projection, not for taking physical hits. Weapons Officer Taeho was running final diagnostics on the railgun systems. Captain, our tungsten rods will go right through those shields if they are only designed for energy weapons. Kinetic projectiles follow different physics. So Young was listening to the alien communications with growing concern. Captain, their radio chatter suggests they think this will be easy. One of them just made a joke about collecting primitive specimens for their museums. The alien ships continued their approach, moving with the confidence of predators who had never been seriously challenged. In the 200 years of Kethvar expansion, they had conquered every species they encountered through superior technology and overwhelming force. Captain Zendar opened a communication channel to the human ship. He wanted to see what kind of aliens he was dealing with before destroying them. The main screen on the Indomitable flickered to life, showing the alien captain's face. Hyun-ki studied the creature carefully. It had 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on its head, blue-gray skin covered with small scales, and a mouth filled with sharp teeth designed for tearing meat. Unknown vessel, Zendar said, his words translated by the ship's computer. I am Captain Zendar of the Kethvar Imperial Fleet. You have entered our territory without permission. State your purpose here. Captain Hyun-ki stepped forward. This was humanity's first official contact with an alien species. His words would be remembered forever, assuming anyone survived to remember them. I am Captain Hyun-ki of the Earth Federation Navy, he replied calmly. We are on a peaceful exploration mission. We were not aware this region of space was claimed by your people. Earth? Zendar's four eyes narrowed as he consulted his databases. We have no record of this world or your species. Your ship appears to use primitive technology. What kind of weapons do you carry? We prefer peaceful solutions to conflicts, Hyun-Ki answered carefully. But we are prepared to defend ourselves if necessary. Captain Zendar laughed, a harsh sound that made his bridge crew join in the amusement. Defend yourselves? With those ancient kinetic cannons, our shields will stop your projectiles easily. We hope it will not come to that, Hyun-Ki said. Then surrender immediately, Zendar demanded. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Your crew will be processed as slaves and your ship will be studied by our scientists. The communication channel went silent for a moment. Captain Hyun-Ki looked around his bridge at his crew. Every face showed the same determination. They had not come this far to become slaves to alien masters. I cannot accept those terms, Hyun-Ki said finally. Then you choose death, Zendar replied. Do not say we did not offer you mercy. The alien captain cut the communication. On his bridge, he turned to his weapons officer with anticipation. Prepare to fire a warning shot, Zendar ordered. Aim for their hull, but do not destroy them completely yet. When they see our power, they may reconsider their foolish defiance. Yes, Captain, the weapons officer replied. Plasma cannons charging. On the Indomitable, the crew watched as the lead alien ship's weapons began to glow brighter. Energy readings spiked on their sensors as the plasma cannon reached full power. Incoming weapon charge detected, Taeho reported. They are preparing to fire. All hands brace for impact, Hyun-Ki announced over the ship's intercom. In the medical bay, Yoon-ji secured her equipment and prepared for casualties. She had treated combat wounds before during Earth's various conflicts. But alien weapons might cause injuries she had never seen. The Kethvar plasma cannon fired with a brilliant flash of blue-white energy. The bolt streaked across space toward the human ship, carrying enough power to punch through most known armor types. The plasma hit the Indomitable's thick hull plating with a tremendous explosion of light and heat. The ship shook under the impact and the lights flickered momentarily. Damage reports began coming in from all sections. Minor hull breach on Deck 7, Dongmin reported. Compartment sealed automatically. Some damage to the outer sensor array, but all critical systems are operational. Captain Zendar stared at his sensors in confusion. His plasma bolt should have burned a massive hole through any normal ship's hull. Instead, the readings showed only superficial damage to the human vessel's outer armor. How thick is their hull plating? He asked his science officer. Scanning now, Captain. The readings show armor depth of over 2 meters in some areas. It appears to be made of layered metals designed to absorb and dissipate energy attacks. 2 meters? Zendar could barely believe it. Most modern ships had hulls only centimeters thick, relying on energy shields for protection. This human ship was built like an ancient fortress. On the Indomitable, Captain Hyun-Ki assessed the damage. The alien warning shot had been powerful but not devastating. His ship could take many more hits like that. So-young, open a channel to the alien ships, he ordered. Channel open, Captain. Captain Zendar, Hyun-Ki said. That was your warning shot. Now you have seen our defenses. I will give you one chance to withdraw peacefully before this situation gets worse for everyone involved. But Zendar's pride was wounded. No primitive species had ever survived a direct hit from Kethvar weapons, much less offered terms to the Imperial fleet. You dare threaten us? He snarled. All ships attack formation. Destroy that vessel completely. The 3 alien cruisers spread out, preparing to attack from multiple angles. Their plasma weapons glowed like angry stars as they charged for a coordinated assault. Captain Hyun-Ki watched the enemy ships maneuvering and felt a cold certainty settle in his stomach. The time for talking was over. Humanity was about to fight its first space battle against an alien enemy. All stations battle alert, he announced. This is not a drill. Taeho, target the lead ship. Let them see what human weapons can really do. The railguns hummed to life, their magnetic coils charging with deadly purpose. Space around Nexus 7 was about to become a battlefield. The 3 Kethvar cruisers attacked at exactly the same moment. Bright blue plasma bolts streaked through space from different directions, all aimed at the human warship. The energy beams lit up the darkness like artificial lightning, carrying enough power to melt through most known materials. The plasma struck the Indomitable's hull with tremendous explosions of light and heat. The thick armor plating absorbed most of the energy, but the ship still shook violently under the coordinated assault. Warning lights flashed red throughout the vessel as damage reports flooded in. Hull breach on Deck 5, Engineer Dongmin called out over the noise. Compartment sealed. Minor damage to the port sensor array. All weapon systems still operational. Captain Hyun-ki held on to his command chair as another wave of plasma bolts hammered his ship. The aliens were good at coordinating their attacks, but their weapons were designed for targets with thin hulls and energy shields. The Indomitable was built like a metal fortress. Casualties? He asked. 3 injured crew members. Chief Medical Officer Yoon-ji reported from the medical bay. Burns from an overloaded power conduit. They will recover fully. Captain Zendar watched his attack with growing frustration. The human ship should have been destroyed by now. His plasma weapons were the most powerful in the HFY fleet, capable of reducing enemy vessels to glowing wreckage in seconds. Instead, the primitive-looking ship was still fighting. Its thick armor had absorbed the plasma attacks like a sponge soaking up water. Scorch marks covered the hull, but the vessel remained intact and dangerous. How is this possible? He demanded from his science officer. Their armor is not just thick, Captain. It appears to be made of multiple layers of different metals. Each layer is designed to absorb specific types of energy. Our plasma weapons are being diffused and scattered instead of penetrating. On the Indomitable, Weapons Officer Tae-ho had finished targeting calculations for the lead alien ship. The railgun systems were fully charged and ready to fire. 6 tungsten rods waited in the magnetic launching tubes, each one capable of punching through almost any material at tremendous speed. Permission to return fire, Captain? Tae-ho asked. Captain Hyun-ki looked at his tactical display. The aliens had fired first and shown no interest in peaceful solutions. His crew was injured, his ship was damaged, and more attacks were coming. The choice was clear. Fire, he ordered. The main railgun spoke with a sound like thunder. The magnetic coils launched a tungsten rod at 12% of light speed, sending it streaking toward the lead HFY cruiser. The projectile was invisible to the naked eye, moving far too fast to track visually. Captain Zendar saw death approaching on his sensors, but there was no time to react. The tungsten rod crossed the space between ships in less than 2 seconds, moving faster than anything the HFY had ever encountered. The projectile hit the alien ship's energy shields and passed through them like they were not there. The shields were designed to stop plasma and laser weapons, not solid objects moving at relativistic speeds. The tungsten rod continued through the shield barrier without slowing down. Next, it struck the HFY ship's hull. The thin metal armor that protected most vessels in civilized space offered no resistance to the human projectile. The rod punched completely through the ship from front to back, leaving a hole big enough for a person to walk through. But the real damage came from what happened next. The tungsten rod had struck something vital inside the alien vessel. Secondary explosions began to chain through the ship as power systems overloaded and fuel lines ruptured. Captain Zendar had just enough time to realize his mistake before his ship exploded. The stellar dominance came apart in a ball of white-hot plasma, lighting up space around Nexus 7 like a miniature star. Debris scattered in all directions, glowing pieces of metal tumbling through the void. On the 2 remaining HFY ships, crews stared in shock at where their flagship had been. The most powerful vessel in their formation had been destroyed by a single shot from the primitive human ship. Impossible, whispered the captain of the Night Hunter. Our shield stopped nothing. How did their weapon penetrate so easily? His science officer was frantically scanning the human ship, trying to understand what had just happened. Captain, they are not using energy weapons at all. That was a solid projectile moving at 12% of light speed. Our shields cannot stop kinetic attacks at that velocity. The captain of the Star Crusher was having similar realizations. All these years we have been building defenses against energy weapons. But these humans use pure kinetic force. Our entire defensive philosophy is useless against them. Both alien captains reached the same conclusion at the same moment. They were facing an enemy their technology could not effectively counter. Their weapons worked, but slowly. The human weapons worked instantly and lethally. Retreat signal, one of them transmitted. Fall back to minimum weapons range. But Weapons Officer Tae-ho was already targeting the second ship. The railgun systems recharged quickly, and another tungsten rod was loaded into the magnetic launcher. Second target acquired, he reported to Captain Hyun-ki. Fire at will, Hyun-ki ordered. The second railgun shot streaked across space toward the Night Hunter. The alien captain tried to maneuver his ship out of the way, but the projectile was too fast. It struck his vessel near the engine section, causing a cascade of explosions that crippled the cruiser. The Night Hunter did not explode like the flagship, but it was clearly out of the fight. Power failures rippled through the ship as critical systems went offline. The vessel began to drift helplessly, its engines dead and weapons failing. That left only the Star Crusher still capable of fighting. Its captain made a decision that would save his life and his crew. All frequencies, he broadcast desperately. We surrender. Do not fire! We surrender. Captain Hyun-ki paused with his finger over the firing control. The alien ship was powering down its weapons and backing away from the battle. Its captain appeared on the main screen, all four eyes wide with fear. Please, the alien begged. We did not understand what we were facing. Your weapons are beyond our experience. We surrender completely. So Young was monitoring alien communications throughout the sector. Captain, I am receiving multiple surrender signals from both surviving ships. They are powering down all weapons systems and requesting terms. Ji-won checked her tactical display. Confirmed, Captain. Both enemy vessels have deactivated their offensive systems. They are moving away from us slowly. Captain Hyun-ki studied the alien captain's face on his screen. The creature looked genuinely terrified, which was understandable after watching two of his ships get destroyed in minutes. Why did you attack us? Hyun-ki asked. We thought you were weak, the alien admitted. Your ship looked primitive to our sensors. We believed your weapons were ancient and harmless. We were wrong. Very wrong, Hyun-ki agreed. The immediate battle was over, but Captain Hyun-ki knew this was just the beginning of something much larger. Word of this fight would spread throughout the Kethvar Empire. Other alien fleets would hear about human weapons and human capabilities. Some might choose diplomacy. Others would choose revenge. So Young, what are you hearing on their long-range communications? Multiple distress signals, Captain. The surviving ships are reporting the battle to their fleet command. They are describing our weapons and tactics in detail. How long before reinforcements arrive? Ji-won was already calculating possibilities. Unknown, sir. But if I were the alien fleet commander, I would send many more ships next time. They know now that 3 cruisers are not enough to defeat us. Captain Hyun-ki nodded grimly. Humanity had just announced its presence to a hostile alien empire in the most dramatic way possible. The Kethvar would not ignore this defeat. They would come back with overwhelming force, but for now the Indomitable had won. Human technology and tactics had proven superior to alien overconfidence. The first battle between humans and the Kethvar Empire was over. The war, however, was just beginning. The red lights blinked on the scanner console like angry eyes. Velthorn stared at the screen, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. Something big was moving through space near the gas giant Nexus 7. The object was metal and roughly 800 meters long, but it looked nothing like any ship in their records. Commander Zekloth, Velthorn called across the monitoring station. You need to see this. Commander Zekloth walked over, his 4 eyes focusing on the display. The unknown vessel had a strange design. Most ships in this part of space were smooth and curved, built for speed and energy efficiency. This one looked rough and angular, covered with bumps, tubes, and what appeared to be weapon mounts. Probably space junk, Zekloth said, but his voice lacked confidence. Some old derelict ship drifting through space. Sir, it is moving too fast and in too straight a line to be debris. This thing is under power and heading somewhere specific. Zekloth studied the readings more carefully. The ship's energy signature was unlike anything in the Kethvar database. Instead of the clean plasma drives used by civilized species, this vessel had some kind of primitive fusion reactor that produced enormous amounts of raw power. Far from the alien monitoring station, Captain Hyun-ki stood on the bridge of the human warship Indomitable. The bridge was quiet except for the steady hum of the life support systems. Warning lights flashed on his command console, and he knew their mission had just become much more complicated. Captain, said Lieutenant Ji-won from the tactical station, our stealth generator just failed completely. The power coupling overloaded and caught fire. Dongmin is working on repairs, but it will take hours. Hyun-ki looked at the main view screen. The gas giant Nexus 7 filled most of the view, its orange and brown clouds swirling in endless storms. Somewhere near the planet was an alien monitoring station, and now they could see his ship clearly. How long until they detect us? He asked. They probably already have, said Communications Officer So Young. I am picking up increased radio chatter from their station. They sound confused but curious. The Indomitable was supposed to be invisible. Earth Command had sent them on a secret reconnaissance mission to learn about the alien empire that controlled this region of space. The Kethvar were rumored to be powerful and aggressive, but Earth needed real intelligence before making any diplomatic contact. Now the aliens would know humans existed whether Earth was ready or not. Status report, Hyun-Ki ordered. Engineer Dongmin looked up from his repair panel, his face streaked with grease. Captain, the stealth system is completely fried. I need at least 6 hours to replace the damaged components, maybe 8. We are completely visible to anyone with decent sensors. Weapons. All railguns are operational, reported Weapons Officer Taeho. We have 90 tungsten rods ready for firing. Point defense systems are also online. Medical bay is ready for casualties, added Chief Medical Officer Yoon-ji over the intercom, though I hope we will not need to use it. On the Kethvar monitoring station, more officers had gathered around the scanner display. The mysterious ship was becoming clearer as it approached their detection grid. Science Officer Kelvan was running analysis programs, trying to understand what they were seeing. The hull appears to be made of layered metal plating, Kelvan reported. Very thick armor, much heavier than normal ship construction. And look at these protrusions along the sides. Weapon mounts, asked Commander Zekloth. Yes, but primitive ones. They look like kinetic cannons, the kind our ancestors used centuries ago. Who still uses solid projectile weapons? The other officers laughed. Energy weapons had replaced kinetic systems long ago throughout civilized space. Plasma cannons and laser arrays were far more effective than crude metal projectiles. Any species still using kinetic weapons was clearly backward and weak. Send a message to Fleet Command, Zekloth ordered. Tell them we have detected an unknown vessel of primitive design. Request instructions. The message traveled through space at light speed to the main Kethvar fleet base. Fleet Commander Rathgul was reviewing patrol reports when the communication arrived. He read it twice, trying to understand what his officers were telling him. Primitive kinetic weapons, he muttered. How interesting. Rathgul had commanded the Kethvar fleet for 20 years. In that time, no one had dared to challenge their control of this sector. 12 star systems bowed to their authority. 6 different alien species served as slaves in their empire. The idea that some unknown race with ancient technology would dare to enter their space was almost amusing. He called his senior staff together. The holographic display showed the mysterious ship from multiple angles. The assembled captains and admirals looked at it with a mixture of curiosity and contempt. It looks like something from a museum, laughed Captain Zendar. Thick metal armor and projectile weapons. Their technology must be centuries out of date. Maybe it is a lost colony ship, suggested another officer. Some primitive species that never developed proper weapons or shields. But Fleet Commander Rathgul was more cautious. He had not survived 20 years of command by underestimating potential enemies. Unknown equals dangerous, he said firmly. Captain Zendar, take 3 cruisers and investigate this vessel. If they surrender peacefully, bring them back for questioning. If they resist, destroy them as an example to others. Captain Zendar saluted smartly. Yes, sir. This should be a simple operation. On the Indomitable, the crew prepared for whatever was coming. They knew they had been detected, and the alien response would tell them a lot about Kethvar intentions. Captain Hyun-Ki hoped for peaceful contact, but his ship was built for war if diplomacy failed. So Young, what are you hearing on their communication channels? 3 ships are being dispatched from their main base, Captain. They should arrive in approximately 4 hours. The messages suggest they think we are weak because our technology looks primitive to them. Jiwon pulled up the intelligence files Earth had gathered about the Kethvar. They use plasma-based weapons and energy shield technology, Captain. Their tactics rely on overwhelming firepower and intimidation. Most species surrender rather than fight them. And they have never encountered humans before, Dongmin added. They do not know what our weapons can really do. Hyun-Ki nodded. Human military doctrine was different from what the aliens expected. Earth had been through many wars, and human engineers had learned to build weapons that killed enemies efficiently, rather than weapons that looked impressive. The waiting began. 4 hours until the aliens arrived. 4 hours to prepare for humanity's first contact with a hostile alien empire. Whatever happened next would determine whether humans and Kethvar became friends, enemies, or something in between. The crew of the Indomitable worked quietly at their stations, checking systems and preparing for battle. They were 800 light-years from Earth, alone in hostile space. If something went wrong, no one would come to rescue them. They would have to save themselves and protect humanity's secrets at the same time. Captain Hyun-ki looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. These men and women represented the best of humanity. Whatever the aliens brought to this meeting, they would be ready. Space was vast and cold, but it was about to become much more dangerous.